study this issue to death, we absolutely will continue to move forward, and I make that commitment. And the evidence of this government's commitment to the programming, Mr. Chair, I think is reflected in the $3 figures that my honourable colleague will see: 89 million, up to 90 million, and Mr. Chair, estimated for the next fiscal 105 million for community-based programs. And I think that that's extremely important to note, that it is not a downscaling, it is not a cutting, it is indeed an addition and an adding to the programs, because we recognize the value of those community-based programs, Mr. Chair. And again, we will do due diligence to ensure that we get the continuum right and work with our stakeholders to ensure that that their input is absolutely involved in that, Mr. Chair. Now, specifically the wheelchair ability, the $1 million commitment to the Abilities Foundation, Mr. Chair, is something that we're extremely pleased with in the department and as a government. I know that we're awaiting some feedback and response from the foundation to deal with the issues that my honourable colleague, issues like my honourable colleague brought forward here today. So when we hear back from them, we will be able to better react and adjust or amend the regulations and the specifics about the program to decide what the go forward, Mr. Chair, looks like.
Thank you. The honourable member for Dartmouth South Portland Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In going back to that particular topic, I just want to reinforce the understanding of the minister in that if we want to keep people independent in their own homes, we have to make sure that the modifications and the technical aids and assistive devices that they need to stay independent and self-sufficient are in place. Otherwise, they're going to move over to the side where we need to consider residential placement, and that is a much more costly alternative. So I realize that she understands that, but we need to make sure that the supports in the community are there. I want to go back to something that the minister herself mentioned early on, and that was her the visitability standards that are in place now in some new construction. And I'd like to suggest and ask the minister if the department has looked at putting those standards in all the new housing, affordable housing options in Nova Scotia, or also making that part of the building code. I understand that it would be less than $1,000 per unit to put in basic barrier-free standards in new home construction. And this would be a very proactive, cost-effective way of creating accessible housing stock both now and for the future. And considering that Nova Scotia has one of the highest rates of disability, if not the highest, in Canada, I would suggest that doing these things proactively at low cost to the public purse would certainly be the route to follow. So I would like to ask, through you, Mr. Chair, whether the department has made this recommendation.
Thank you. The Honourable, the Minister for Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And we often talk about the importance of cross-jurisdictional and cross-governmental responsibility. And as I was listening to my honourable colleague, that was indeed one of the questions that I had asked at the time when we were discussing what jurisdiction exists where, who has the ability to make those recommendations and those requests. And so I understand that there is a Canadian building code, there are provincial standards and municipal standards, and I believe it's incumbent upon governments to cooperate to ensure that we work within the parameters of those three, but also that we involve the stakeholders who best understand the challenges that come along with that. So certainly that is something that we take very seriously. I believe, and I can get the specifics of the tender call, Mr. Chair, but I believe in the tender call itself for our housing developments, we have an accessibility requirement, Mr. Chair, and certainly as we continue to respond to the ever-pressing issues of society when it comes to accessibility issues, that's a must, Mr. Chair, and must continue.
Thank you. The honourable member for Dartmouth South, Portland Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one other question before I pass it over to one of my colleagues. Canada has signed the UN Convention, so I'm just wondering, does your budget for next year reflect any of the necessary action that Nova Scotia may have to take as a result of that signing the UN Convention? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister for Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and indeed I was hoping my colleague would bring that forward, as I know she brought it forward in the House before, and I'm pleased to say that yes, Nova Scotia certainly has supported Canada signing the UN Convention, and it was a bit of a learning curve for me because I had to understand the difference between signature and ratification. And Canada signing on, of course, is a commitment to move forward with the convention, to work with Canada, of course, as the federal jurisdiction, to work with the provinces who have the jurisdiction and the responsibility for that, to work with the provinces before ratification, as it would be ratification that would incur any financial responsibilities or costs to the provinces. So we will continue to have dialogue and discussion with our federal counterparts, and certainly as we move forward toward ratification, that certainly would be included in any budgetary discussions, Mr. Chair.
The honourable member for Halifax Citadel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Minister, I just have a series of very short questions that arise largely from cases that arose in my constituency that I also believe raise policy questions, and a couple of them relate to my area as youth critic. I'd like to start by asking about Spencer House, which is a seniors' home in my constituency, and as you know, most seniors would like to live in their homes as long as possible and in their communities, and the government's stated goal is to make that possible. Now, Spencer House provides a hot meal to seniors who drop in. There are recreational facilities, there's music, there's a great deal of companionship and recreation, and it's a very important resource to my constituency. Yet, despite the government's statement about creating more opportunities for seniors in their communities, Spencer House has essentially lost resources since 1999. Its funds have been effectively cut back. It's had to lay off people. It used to be open on weekends, and now it's only open on weekdays, and it's a tremendous success story. I wanted to table a newspaper article about that, just to give the Minister some background. Now, the Minister of Health made a statement at Spencer House not that long ago, and I talked with him about it because it was somewhat an inappropriate location for a good news story about seniors, because they effectively cut back. And he undertook at that time to consult with you, and he said that the situation at Spencer House would be reviewed. And I want to know, has he consulted with you, and have you reached any decision about Spencer House and about seniors' homes in general, and providing more resources to them in their own communities? Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I welcome my honourable colleague to the discussion today, and appreciate him bringing forward particular cases that take place in his constituency that are important to all Nova Scotians, but in particular to the member himself. And certainly Spencer House is one of those locations I've not been to myself yet, Mr. Chair, but would welcome an opportunity to go, and perhaps my honourable colleague would go along with me. I know that the Minister of Health was there. I wasn't able to be there for that announcement, but would look forward to having a visit, because the information, the discussion I had with my honourable colleague from Health was that indeed was a spot that I should make sure I get to myself. So perhaps I'll take that up with my colleague outside the chamber, and we'll arrange for a visit ourselves. Because of course, as with all budgetary pressures, as we move through the budgetary process, we will be examining those pressures, Mr. Chair, as they unfold. Again, I know my honourable colleague referenced cuts in funding. It's my understanding that indeed Department of Community Services maintained their funding, and we were not one of those who cut funding to that facility. So that's always good news when you're not one of the ones who has, and so we take pleasure in being able to say that. So the maintaining of that funding is important, as well as a positive relationship with the folks at Spencer House to ensure that we work together to maximize any fundraising opportunities they may have, to maximize any programming that may exist within the department or outside of the department that we can assist them to access. So it would be in that vein, Mr. Chair, that I would welcome a visit and an opportunity to meet with the folks from Spencer House to see if there are some other components that we can access together to ensure they maximize their available funding.
Thank you. The honourable member for Halifax and Dole.
Mr. Chair, through you, I thank the Minister for her very open response. I will definitely take her up on her offer to visit Spencer House. I can tell you that the seniors are very articulate, and their executive director, Deborah Dostal, can be quite passionate and quite convincing. So I welcome the opportunity to visit with you at Spencer House. In terms of funding, I did not suggest that funding had been rolled back, but that funding had been frozen since 1999, and that's an effective cutback when you consider the costs of running a daycare, a seniors center. And the other question I have relates also to seniors. I conducted a survey of seniors and seniors' homes in my constituency, and asked them, what issues were important to you? What did you like about the current arrangements, and what didn't you like? And 2 issues kept coming up regularly in the surveys, and the return rate was about 40%, which is quite incredible. The first issue revolved largely around transportation. Many seniors, especially in winter, feel trapped in their homes, and they can't access services that are available to them, and they would very much like to improve Accessibus services. They would like to have it longer in the evenings. They would like to have it on weekends, so that they can get out of their homes and apartments and participate more actively in events and that most of us take for granted. So my question is on transportation, or perhaps I'll give you the second part of my question as well. The second theme really revolved around recreation for seniors in seniors' homes. That for the same reason, they felt trapped. They're very sociable, and many of them are lonely in their apartments, and they'd like to get out and engage and get involved with their communities, and they would very much like to see more recreational facilities. So I guess that's a 2-part question. What is the Minister planning on doing to provide better and more accessible transportation for seniors? And also, are there any plans to provide additional services for recreation in seniors' home and around communities?
Thank you. The Minister for Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I want to begin by applauding my colleague for doing something that's challenging. When you ask the question, you have to be prepared for the answer. And so reaching out to the seniors and asking them their concerns is something that we could likely all do more of. And so I want to applaud my colleague for doing that. And a 40% return rate is phenomenal. So whatever tricks he used, we should all take a lesson from that, because 40% return is really great. So, and I would encourage him to share that information with any other department or minister that might benefit from some of that information. I certainly will do that after today, Mr. Chair. I will take the issues that my colleague brought up, and I will take them to the departments who could be of benefit learning that information as well, Mr. Chair, and I would encourage him to do so as well. So when we talk about transportation, again, it's important to recognize that there's no question transportation can be a challenge. I know my honourable colleague has an urban riding, and it's a challenge for the urban seniors to get out and about within the community, equally as much of a challenge as it is for our rural seniors to get out and about in their community and find activities and opportunities to socialize, to exercise, etc. So the Accessibus, as I understand, is a municipal responsibility, but certainly again, I don't believe that we should allow walls to exist that prevent us from discussion. I will certainly bring the issue to my honourable colleague, Minister of Service, Nova Scotia Municipal Relations, as well as the Minister of Health Promotion and Protection, which is where I'm going with the recreational facility answer as well. Because I think collectively we have to appreciate that I know that the government has made a commitment in this budget to expand the number of recreation facilities across the province, Mr. Chair. There's a commitment to a dollar figure, and I won't put that dollar figure in the mouth of my colleague, but I believe it was in the vein of $50 million. And so certainly we would want to ensure that that all of our constituents, young and more aged, are able to access the facilities that those dollars will go to create. I do want to bring one other topic to my honourable colleague's attention, though, and that is the new pilot program that we're bringing in this year through the Department of Community Services, and that is an assistance for seniors to stay in their homes and access resources as a part of that ability to stay in their homes longer. So as we roll out the details on that, certainly I will make those available to all of my colleagues, and I know that my honourable colleague will be interested to see the details of that pilot, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The honourable member from Halifax Citadel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to put on the record that it was a social worker at Metro Housing who helped me get that 40% return rate. And if it's not inappropriate, I'll name her. Sarah Campbell was the social worker, and she is assigned to Joe Howe Manor. I have another set of questions related more to my critic area, and more specifically the McAvoy inquiry. I have a letter here, and I won't table it because I see that the minister was copied on it. It's from the Halifax Peninsula Community Health Board, and I'll summarize some of these recommendations to you. The Nunn inquiry, as you know, recommended that the department develop a public, comprehensive and collaborate interdepartmental strategy to coordinate provincial program services and supports for children and youth at risk and their families. And in particular, there have been challenges revolving around schools and youth at risk in schools, and youth who come into contact with the justice system and with health, particularly mental health and addiction. And I'm wondering what specific programs have been put in place. I don't expect the minister to give me a comprehensive answer at this stage because it hasn't been that long ago. But I would like to know what your department has done recently and or plans on doing to meet some of the recommendations of the Nunn inquiry on collaboration.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I really want to thank my honourable colleague for bringing this forward. The horrific tragedy of the Teresa McAvoy death provided the opportunity for us to learn from this terrible tragedy. The opportunity presented itself through the Nunn Commission, and I was extremely pleased to be part of that team that unanimously accepted all 34 recommendations of Justice Nunn. And in doing so, Mr. Chair, we did not do that lightly. We accepted all 34 with the understanding that it came with a responsibility, a financial responsibility. It comes with a visionary responsibility and a social responsibility. And as I've stated before on the floor of this House, for those who have not read Justice Nunn's report, I would encourage you to, because it is extremely moving, and there's no question that there are challenges out there that we need to address and take very seriously. Now, as my honourable colleague identified, we have been made the lead on this, on the response, on the action, the move forward. So we've accepted them, and now we have the move forward. The $3 million commitment in the budget, Mr. Chair, is financial proof to that commitment, but even more so is the commitment that as lead minister, I in discussion with my colleagues in the various other departments who are involved here, we know that the collaboration piece is key. All too often, clients come to us who say, we couldn't access it. We know it's out there somewhere, but we weren't sure how to access it. So that is absolutely essential. And in taking up the recommendations of Justice Nunn, of course, we will be creating the Family and Youth Services section within the department. That's being carved out as we speak. We have begun, we did advertise for the position of the individual who would create that youth strategy. That process is going through due diligence, and we would anticipate that individual to be hired in the very near future, Mr. Chair. Along with that comes, we didn't say we're going to wait, because we told Nova Scotians we would report in June, so we didn't sit and wait for these other components to fall into place. The Deputies Committee has been working very diligently to put together the culmination of the resources that are available out there and how we better access them through some of those facilities that we have across this province that are just, when you look at the family resource centres and the education, the schools, and what they're doing in some of these areas, Mr. Chair, it's amazing. We need to make sure that we bring together all of the components to ensure consistent service delivery and to ensure that those who need us most are able to not only find us, but find us and then access those services, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The honourable member from Halifax-Sidnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have three, I hope, short questions on the follow-up on the McAvoy inquiry. One question relates to the collaborative work that the department is supposed to do with the Director of Youth Strategies and Strategy and Services, which, if the minister has the McAvoy inquiry, it's recommendation 29, which is part of the province's strategy for children and youth at risk. The Department of Community Services should consider establishing a separate division that will provide a range of services to families directed towards the promotion of the integrity of the family, similar to those set out in Section 13 of the Children and Family Services Act. Where is the department with that, and is there a specific set of proposals that's going to be coming out from the department related to meeting that particular recommendation?
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And it's my understanding, as I indicated earlier, we have accepted that recommendation. We are doing that within the department. We are creating that section. The director is currently in place, and we will be moving forward with the regional coordinators, Mr. Chair. I believe we are advertising, or have just recently advertised, or will be advertising in the very near future for those 4 regional coordinators, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The honourable member for Halifax-Sidnell.
Mr. Chair, and I thank the minister in particular for the short answer to that question, because I know that they've probably got a lot more on the go in meeting that recommendation. 2 other questions. One is in this letter that I referred to earlier, the Capital District Health Board recommended the creation of a 211 system, which is a system that I believe the United Way has recommended in other provinces, and I see the Minister of Health nodding that he has heard of this before, probably from me as well. It really relates to youth at risk and their families and their ability to navigate their way through the community services system. One of the subtexts of the Nunn inquiry was that many of these services were available to Archie Billard and his family, but they were just not able to find it in time. They were not able to take advantage of it. And the 211 recommendation essentially says that perhaps families and youth at risk can call this 211 system and have a fairly quick way of finding the services that they need very early in the process, so that the community service can intervene. I'm not talking about specifically intervene, but provide for an intervention of some kind that would help these families. And is the department willing to consider a request like that, or are they considering something like that, similar to the cancer care patient navigation system, I believe?
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. A very good question. As I understand, a briefing is coming up any day now. So my honourable colleague is preempting the briefing that I understand the department will be bringing to me to consider this as one of the options, Mr. Chair, that we do consider as we move forward. We know we have the successful youth helpline, of course the cancer line that my honourable colleague referenced. So we know that there are options out there, and this is one that I look forward to being briefed on in the very near future, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The honourable member for Halifax-Sidnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have one final question in the time I have left. I'm into overtime, I believe. The minister mentioned family resource centers. We do have a family resource center called Family SOS in my constituency. And Family SOS has a very interesting program which tries to reunite children who are in care, in custody, in foster care, and bring them into contact with their parents who had initially put them up for adoption, because the conditions of those, the circumstances of those parents have changed for one reason or the other, and they believe that they have a record and they have the evidence to show that many of these youth at risk would benefit from it. We're not prejudging it, but that they should explore the possibility of supporting a program like that to get some help to these youth at risk. And I'm wondering if the minister has considered or is considering or will be willing to consider a proposal like that from Family SOS.
Thank you. The Honourable, the Minister for Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And of course, as we move forward, we'll be looking at all options, Mr. Chair, as they present themselves, all of the varying components of that the different agencies have out there. But Mr. Chair, it doesn't go unnoticed that the director actually comes from Family SOS. So I'm sure, the new director that I mentioned earlier, I'm sure that the components of and the successes of that agency will certainly be taken into consideration, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Pictou West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chairman. Madam Minister and staff, I'm pleased to have a few minutes here to discuss a few issues of importance, I guess, from my perspective as MLA for Pictou West. And I guess after rural roads, the biggest issue I hear about at the constituency level is around community service rates, and a lot of people are having a struggle to make ends meet. The end of the month comes before the money's all gone before the end of the month comes, what I'm saying. And people that are on social assistance for trying to make enough to feed their children or to look after their shelter and their food and clothing and school costs for if they have children and so on. It's a tough battle, and I'm sure the minister is aware of that. And I guess we can say thank goodness for things like food banks and churches that sometimes fill that gap, but still it's a difficult struggle for many people that are in this position, that they find themselves on social assistance. And I know last year there was a very small increase. I think it was $4 for some that was received but it didn't really meet the cost of living. And so I guess my first question to the minister is around how often does the department review the process? When are the rates actually going to come to a level where there's a decent amount to deal with ever escalating costs of living? And I'd just like to get her comments on that.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I welcome my honourable colleague to the discussion here this afternoon, and he certainly brings to the floor an issue that is extremely important, and I'm sure an issue that is not a surprise to any member in this chamber. And my honourable colleague references the personal allowance, the income assistance rates, and of course, Mr. Chair, we always at the Department of Community Services, we always balance out, Mr. Chair, and I like to use the visual here beside me today, Mr. Chair. We have the accountant who represents the fiscal responsibility and accountability, and of course we have the ever-esteemed social worker who represents the social responsibility. And so that's a true indication, Mr. Chair, of how we approach these issues within the department. And as my honourable colleague indicated, there was an increase in the personal allowance, Mr. Chair. Actually, for the record, that increase was for 3 years in a row, and that increase amounted to about an 11% increase over that period. Along with that, we had a 2-year increase consecutive in shelter allowance, Mr. Chair. So again, another indication that this government and the department take very seriously the challenges that do face our clientele, Mr. Chair. And certainly, for my honourable colleagues' information, effective October the 1st of 2007, a commitment made by this government that we're pleased to fulfill is the increase for personal allowance will now be based on the Consumer Price Index and will come into effect, Mr. Chair, October the 1st of 2007.
The honourable member for Pictou West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly, Minister, if there's anything your department can do to assist our clientele, I guess all of us really, our constituents that we all deal with, it is a struggle. It truly is a struggle for many families and individuals out there, and anything that can be done to assist them would be helpful. As time is a factor here, I want to move on to my next topic is around the housing component of your department, and probably it's the third biggest issue that I get as a MLA is, you know, are there some grants? Is there some help that I can get to assist in repairing or maintaining my ability to remain within my own home? And the most common complaint, I guess, is, you know, after the long wait list, I think there's around 800 on the wait list in Pictou County. But the more common concern after that, after they've gone through the process, is that they're told, sorry, you're not eligible for a grant, your income is too high. And in reality, the income is, cutoff is quite low. It's, I think it's somewhere around 18,000 or so for a family that's non-senior. And if they're seniors, I believe my figures are correct, it's somewhere a little over 23,000. And so that's the concern that most people that come back, they're $1,000 over, they're $2,000 over, whichever, but basically the cutoff is too low. And is there any plans by the department to raise those levels both for non-seniors and for senior individuals or families?
The Honourable the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, another issue that is extremely important to all of us, and I know my honourable colleague brings it to the floor here because it's one that affects quite a few individuals, of course, in the urban area, but as well, and perhaps more particularly in the rural areas. And so my honourable colleague brings forward the issue of income levels that allow an individual to be eligible or not eligible. Those household income levels, as we refer to them as the hills, those hills are reviewed on a regular basis. The hills are something that we negotiate with CMHC, Canadian Mortgage and Housing Authority. So we do so in partnership with the federal government, with our federal counterparts. And we have recently raised those hills for the Nova Scotia component, the provincial component. So I would bring that to my honourable colleague's attention. And I'm more than pleased to provide him with a chart that lists those rates as they vary in different zones across the province. So I'll bring those to my honourable colleague's attention in chart form. As well, Mr. Chair, we did raise the allowable amount for a loan from $3,000 to $5,000. And so that provided, because we knew that the dollar figure to have repairs done was increasingly more challenging to have those repairs done for the $3,000, so we increased that to the $5,000. And again, Mr. Chair, we're always at it's almost a catch-22 situation. As my honourable colleague knows, you increase the income level, you now have increased the potential clientele. And so we have to balance that out. And so the wait lists, we have an ever-existent wait list. We process approximately 2,000 to 2,500 applicants per year, and again, we end up with 2,000 to 2,500 on our wait lists to work with, Mr. Chair. So it's a challenge, but we continue to do the best job that we can with the resources, and we have continued to provide money for those repair and renovations for our seniors and families across the province.
Order. The time has expired for the NDP caucus. We'll now recognize the honourable member for Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Minister, staff. It's nice to be part of budget estimates. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure I may have missed some of the questions, so I want to apologize if I'm repeating some of the questions that other members of this House have asked you. As an MLA for the riding of Annapolis, this is probably, your department is probably the department that I would deal with the most in terms of helping some constituents find their way through and dealing, quite frankly, with the frustration that they face at times dealing with your department. And dealing with some staff that you have in my constituency, and I want to first of all tell you how pleased you should be with the quality of the people who are working on the front lines that I deal with in the riding of Annapolis. But if I was to have one concern, and that is that I'm not sure there's enough of them. Many of them have a tremendous caseload to deal with, and they find it quite difficult. I think when you move forward, and also clients accessing it find it difficult to feel that they are getting the kind of a little more one-on-one that they would like. So I'm wondering if you could just address that in terms of whether your department has been dealing and has any idea, any suggestion of what they're going to do with frontline workers.
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I welcome my honourable colleague to the discussion, to the debate, and I know his questions will be well thought out, sincere, and with his constituents at the forefront, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank my honourable colleague for his comments regarding the frontline workers and the staff. Do you know, it has never ceased to amaze me the work they do, the phenomenal work they do. Oftentimes, and I acknowledge, Mr. Chair, they have very heavy workloads. That is not a surprise to me. It is a reality, and each and every day they rise to the occasion. And so I applaud them. I'm extremely proud of them, and I know the hard work they do is for all the right reasons, Mr. Chair. And my honourable colleague brings the question of what the plan is. Mr. Chair, we have absolutely no plan to do anything, but that would affect the FTE, the full-time equivalents, Mr. Chair, our staff. Are valuable. I will note for the record, Mr. Chair, an $11 million commitment in this year's budget for salary increases and benefits for our staff, and they're well worth every penny of it, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for Annapolis.
That commitment, whether we will see additional frontline workers or whether that money, that the $11 million that you speak of, is really to enhance the salaries and benefits of the existing employees. One of the other issues which comes to my constituency often is the issue around somebody who may come in who has been cut off, someone whose assistance has been stopped for whatever reason, and they have the opportunity to appeal. But it's almost in reverse, that you're found guilty before you have an opportunity. You've got to prove you're innocent. Where we want to know why, what it comes down to is why, if somebody is deemed to be in receipt of income assistance and there's a problem, why is not the appeal process allowed to take place before we cut them off?
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And to answer the first question raised by my honourable colleague, yes, indeed, the $11 million is for salary and benefit of current staff levels. State that for the record, Mr. Chair. And however, I do want to add to that as we've seen a decline in our caseloads, for various reasons, economic stability, folks are able to get off the system and into the workforce. As we see that decline, we do not decline our caseworkers as well. So we're hoping that the decline in those caseloads can provide for a little buffer with the staff, that they don't feel an increase in their caseloads. So we're hoping that will be the case there. The issue that my colleague brings forward is one that I know he has addressed with me in the past. I know it's part of the ESIA policy and regulation policy framework that exists. It's one that it has been brought by my honourable colleague. I am prepared to look at it and take it to staff to see because it does seem at first glance to be counterproductive. So it's one that I do want to take a look at, and we'll ask to have a review of that particular component and see if we can't have some move on that one, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for Annapolis.
Forward to that discussion and an opportunity to perhaps correct what I think is a wrong in the system. Career Seeks is an announcement that you made, and I know it's a program that you're very pleased with and your department is pleased with, one that many members of this House would applaud. The only problem that and I can speak directly for myself, that I have with it is the fact that we limit it to only 50 people per year. I want a little explanation from your department. I know it's going to be, we're talking about budgeting issues, but what we're basically saying to Nova Scotians who qualify go to a 4-year post-secondary education, that we will allow you to keep your benefits while we give you a student loan as well. We're not giving it, we're allowing them to have, they will pay that student loan back. So I'm wondering how that affects your department and why it wouldn't be a benefit for Nova Scotians to have as many people attending post-secondary education for a 4-year period to allow them to better themselves and move off the system completely.
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And my honourable colleague absolutely raises a program that I'm very pleased with that we were able to introduce in the department. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the tangible results. I know my honourable colleague expresses concern about the limitations, and I accept that concern. And Mr. Chair, in the discussion and the creation of this 4-year pilot, I think it's important that we do due diligence, that we look at the success rate, and I fully anticipate and expect it to be success rates of 50 per year for a 4-year period to a 200 total. And I think it's important to address, Mr. Chair, that we are very cognizant of the challenge that goes along with potentially adding to one's financial burden, and I don't want to find ourselves in that. I don't want people to find themselves in that position. So the intent of the program is to work with the individuals who are able and willing and want to take on a 4-year university program. Clientele who have worked with the counselors, the labor experts to ensure that they will have success at the end of the programming. So as we move forward, as we see the first round of successful applicants and successful entrants, I would be more than pleased to review the component, the entry component, and let's see what the uptake is. Let's see where the pressures are, and I'm more than pleased to review that as we move through the pilot, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Keeping with Career Seeks, has there been a review at this point? Have you spoke to the applicants who are presently in the system and how are they feeling after the initial beginning of this program, whether it's meeting their needs, whether it's accurate, or whether it fits, the component is right? What was the uptake? Was there a huge backlog in terms of applicants who were applying for those 50 spots?
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And we operate on all sorts of different time frames in our lives for different reasons. And of course, the school year is one that provides particular challenge. And so we introduced this program. We worked with our staff. We educated our staff, and we got our social workers and caseworkers well informed of the program, Mr. Chair. We got word out to the communities, Mr. Chair, that this was a program that we were looking forward to seeing success with. And so because of the calendar year, we did not have any uptake, of course, in the fall of 2006. January was not acceptable for any of our applicants, so we're looking forward to September 2007 as being the first real indication of the uptake and the interest. So at this point, Mr. Chair, I do not have a number of combined interest nor a regional breakdown, but I would anticipate with the school year that we will see the true results of that.
The Honourable Member for Annapolis.
Mr. Chair, just to follow up that, have there been people who have been guaranteed that they would be in the program come September at this point?
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's important to note that there are various components of Career Seek that are put on the upfront to ensure that we do not add to that burden. So as our caseworkers and our social workers work with individuals who are interested in the program, they attempt to ensure that, again, that there's reason and rationale as well as desire to fulfill the the number component. And so as we move forward, there are no guaranteed spots per se, other than the 50 that we've committed to that we will continue to work on an individual basis with each of our clientele.
The honourable member for Annapolis.
I was asking, are there 50 applicants now who are filling those 50 spots?
The Honourable, the Minister.
I don't at this point have a list or a number for the individuals who have expressed interest. I could certainly put an all call out and get that number from staff across the province if my honourable colleague would like that outside the chamber.
The honourable member for Annapolis.
That would be fine. My concern is that, you know, if applicants don't know they actually are been fit into the program now, they have to also now go through the process of applying for student loan. And that's another process which has to take place, plus applying for the program that they want at university to ensure that they'll be ready to go in September. So I'm just wondering if there's a timeline that we could maybe pull that all together so that the applicants would know when the next step is they can take.
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
It's my understanding that staff have been working with individuals across the province to ensure those who have expressed interest have all of the requirements fulfilled, and they're working with them to ensure that come September enrollment time, all of that paperwork would be done in advance.
The Honourable member for Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was a program announced called Harvest Connect that allowed some of your clients to participate in a work program with the agricultural community and allowing them to earn up to $3,000 a year without the clawback taking effect. I'm just wondering if you could tell the hosts what the uptake was in that program and where we are now with it.
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Again, another program that we were very pleased to put in place through the department for a variety of reasons. And I know my honourable colleague comes from an agricultural community and understands the pressures that exist in that agricultural community, as do many members of this House, as it pertains to workers. So through Harvest Connection, we provided for the agricultural sector as well as the Christmas tree producers to access potential workforce that we have through our contacts at the Department of Community Services. We recognized that with any program, the biggest challenge is getting the word out there. And so we worked with the Federation of Agriculture, with the Nova Scotia Christmas Tree Council to transfer that information through them to their membership, as we needed the registration of those farmers and those Christmas tree producers. We then provided the same information and educated our staff so that they would be able to work with their clients to do a match-up of the clients with the particular farmers. We look forward to expanding that, of course, hoping that we will get an even greater uptake in the days to come. I can give my honourable colleague a specific number. I know that's what he's looking for. So the initial take-up of the program has been fairly low. We have had 6 people who were able to benefit from that program, Mr. Chair, and we would hope that that would grow exponentially in the seasons to come.
The Honourable member for Annapolis.
I'm surprised. I thought there would be a larger uptake in that, and I want to say this to the minister. I think part of the problem may not be the program. It may be in the application process, not for the client, not for your client, but for the agricultural business who is actually going through the process of wanting to hire somebody. I don't know if that's been mentioned and been voiced to you as a concern. And in terms of the Christmas tree operation, in Annapolis we haven't seen a lot of that. I know in Springfield, but if that has been an issue for the Christmas tree growers as well.
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and absolutely, my colleague has hit the nail right on the head. In the case of the Christmas tree producers, they were very interested to learn about the program, and they've actually requested staff to work with them to better understand how to benefit from this program, how to capitalize on this program for the benefit of all. And so I know that at their annual meeting, which is upcoming, we will work with them to ensure that they get the information necessary so that they can then take it forward. And we will endeavor to do the same with the Federation of Agriculture to ensure that their farmers have the best information available to them. And I should reference for the record, Mr. Chair, those six people were over a 3-month period.
The honourable member for Annapolis.
Thank you. And we are also now coming into a season where the agricultural community and we'll begin looking for people to come and provide them assistance. And one of the good things about this program is that you could earn that $3,000 over an extended period of time or in a very condensed period of time. I would encourage your department to look at the application process, though, from the farm business perspective, because I believe that's where the biggest issue is. Many of them would be more than willing to participate in the program. It is a program that I fully supported when it was announced, and I still support. I do believe there needs to be some administrative improvements. But I'm wondering, has your department now looked at broadening beyond agricultural community and beyond Christmas tree producers into some of the other sectors, and particularly where we have seasonal work?
The Honourable the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and my honourable colleague brings the point, and it's been duly noted, that if it indeed is the application process that is providing challenges for farmers or for Christmas tree producers, that's something that we absolutely will look at in the department, and we will ensure that if that's the stumbling block or if that's the challenge, the barrier, we get over that, and we will do so through the department, through an information process. So I thank my honourable colleague for mentioning that, and we've made note of that, and we'll ensure that that application process is cleaned up or simplified so that we can get the maximum benefit out of the program, out of the Harvest Connection. Now, my colleague also brings forward the issue of the option of expanding it. I have discussed this with other members during these estimates, and it's absolutely something that we need to look at. It's a good program. It is a program that makes sense. It encourages the return to the workforce, which we all know is key. It encourages the ability to take a void which is there in a seasonal employment and fill that void with an individual who needs to be in the workforce and who wants to be in the workforce. So as we move forward, I absolutely have and will continue to look at, are there other components, are there other sectors? Some provide, for that seasonal ability. Is there an opportunity there for us to perhaps fill some of the void? I had the issue raised by one of the urban members who said it really wasn't beneficial for the urban members because they didn't feel that their constituents were able to access the seasonal work through the Federation of or through the agricultural component or the Christmas tree component. So certainly the short answer, Mr. Chair, to that question is yes, we will be looking to see if we can expand it.
The honourable member for Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad to see that it was raised by urban MLAs, because I believe that the issue of this program can go beyond the resource-based industries, particularly into the tourism industry. And I also believe that we need to begin to look at not punishing people on income assistance for every dollar they earn. The 70-30 rule, I think it's really a disincentive for anyone to go out and earn money. I know your department actually has hired people in my constituency to go out and shovel walkways. At the same time, they've clawed back 70 cents of the dollar, and people say, why would I do that? What's the incentive for me to do that and being punished? I'm wondering if we looked at the possibility of perhaps saying, regardless of what it is you're doing, that you could earn up to the $3,000 limit in a 12-month period before we start instituting the 730 rule and before we start doing that clawback, and providing a real incentive for people to go out and earn that extra income. We all have talked about in this House the fact that the benefits are low, don't meet the basic living standard that we believe Nova Scotians should be living to. This will allow an opportunity for somebody on income assistance to increase their income without being punished with the 30-70 rule. So I'm wondering where your department is with that.
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And as my honourable colleague knows, it absolutely is essential that we look at all the components that go toward the ESIA programming and success of the ESIA programming. And we've seen a continual decline in our caseloads on the income assistance end because we have funneled so many resources through the employment support end. And we want to continue to do that because, of course, we recognize that the value of families and individuals getting off the system and becoming independent is a win-win. It's a win from a financial point of view because as individuals and families come off the system and go independently on their own, of course that becomes a benefit to the economy of the community and the province, but even more importantly, it becomes a tremendous feeling of self-confidence and a tremendous feeling of success. And we want to always keep that at the forefront, Mr. Chair. So as we discuss issues like the available income that can be earned before it works as a disincentive, I know that there are varying ways of looking at that. We don't ever want to create disincentives for individuals to go into the workforce. We don't want to create disincentives for individuals to not live up to their full potential. And Mr. Chair, it's a challenge to keep that balance of the disincentive that goes along with the ability to keep a certain percentage of the wage with the incentive to get off the system. So I know that situations like the income tax refund that we brought into place last year, the 30% allowable income tax return was a step in the right direction, Mr. Chair. I know that my honourable colleague has brought this along with the Standing Committee to the attention of the Minister, and I know that it's in a letter to my attention through the second round of the Poverty Forum. And it is an issue, Mr. Chair, that I certainly will look at, that the department will continue to look at to ensure that we have the incentives in place that truly benefit all of our clientele, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the honour of, in my constituency, of having a number of facilities that your department manages. The adult residential centre being one of them, the apartment facility, which is an addition to the adult residential centre. I have Carlton Road Industries, which is a workplace environment for people with disabilities to come and provide them to put skills together that they can work. One of the concerns that I hear on every one of those, regardless of whether it's the workplace environment or in the living facility of the apartment off of the adult residential centre, is around the issue of the per diem per day and the food allowance. In particularly, a number of my constituencies, Kirk Grady comes to my mind right off the bat, a young person from Bridgetown who is a Special Olympian, and I should add, won a gold medal while he was in New Brunswick more recently. But the issue that they come is, in order to eat according to what is a healthy standard, one that Canada Food and Health Guide says we should be eating to, they're unable to do that. One of the other challenges is for them, in order to go out, they're limited. They can't drive. They don't have the transportation. So in order to go to some of these stores to buy the healthy food choices that we want them to do, it's extremely difficult. So I'm wondering if your department has looked at the per diem, whether or not there's some flexibility in the budget that they have. I know it's pretty much, this is how much you have for food. And I wonder if they can allow some flexibility in terms of allowing the client to adjust the money that you have and spend it the way they choose.
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and please allow me to preface my statement saying that we value the tremendous work that, as I know my honourable colleague does, the tremendous work that goes on in all of the facilities across the province, be it the adult service centres, the residential care facilities, you name it. The value of the service provided truly is invaluable, Mr. Chair. And that being said, Mr. Chair, we know that there are pressures out there. We know that the service providers have daily pressures upon them. And it's for that reason, Mr. Chair, that we hired Mr. Hogg. So we are awaiting the Hogg report in its entirety, and we will be reviewing that report, because that report looks at the funding for our service providers across the province. There have been, Mr. Chair, over the years, for various reasons, municipalities had certain responsibilities, and then the province took over responsibilities with the increased demands on society. We've had a variety of funding formulas in place. We need to streamline that, Mr. Chair. We need to ensure that consistency and fairness and accountability are in place. And so we look forward to the full analysis of that Hogg report, and I certainly will share that the review of that report with my honourable colleague and any colleagues who would be interested, to ensure that that valuable work that they do is recognized and is treated in a fair and equitable manner.
The honourable member for Annapolis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That would be Hog 2, right? That would be Hog 3. Oh. I know last year during this time I invited the minister to my riding to view some of these facilities, and I know our schedules, and and you have offered to come a few times, and my schedule was difficult to connect, and it was a real challenge, and I will be busy at least for another 30 days, I think. But I do want to make the offer again, and to make it happen, because I think it's important for you to get an opportunity to come down and see the great work that's being done at Carlton Road Industries, as well to get a chance to come and see and have firsthand from the clients who are having these issues around budget issues for them. They've provided some flexibility. They have some good answers, really. There's a committee in Bridgetown called People First. There's a branch of what is, I'm sure, all over Nova Scotia. And they would love to have the minister come, and just so they could have a sit down and explain to you the challenges that they face, and where they think, even in the existing dollars that they get, to allow some flexibility in how it's spent, would maybe alleviate some of the problems that we're talking about. So I want to make that offer to you, and I will attempt to be able to be free when you're willing to come down. So I want to acknowledge that you did make the offer to come, and it was my schedule that was the problem last time. So I would encourage you to and ask you to allow us to bring you into the riding again, so that we can show you the facilities firsthand. I want to just change gears a little bit and talk about the early child care and early learning, and the $3.9 million that has come down. I know that 4.4 roughly has been spent, and there's 35 million, and I've been on record as saying, we have waiting lists, let's act, let's move. I want to hear your views on that, and why Nova Scotia families who are looking for child care, and they hear that figure of $35 million still with the government and the department, are saying, how come we don't see spaces that our children can access, or we as a family can access? I also want you to talk a little bit about the issue of portability around that. The issue of the cap around portability too. I'll be on record as saying I support the issue of portability, and I've said it in many places, because I think it allows some flexibility for families and children to have flexibility around their specific needs. But one of the challenges that have been brought to us by daycare facilities has been the issue of the cap. They say, in order for portability to work properly, in order to work to the best interest of the child and that family, then we need to remove the cap. And I'm wondering if your department has been looking at that, and when we can see the additional monies moved out and allow Nova Scotia families to have benefit of it.
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And of course, to my honourable colleague, I would be delighted to come to his riding. I can't imagine what's occupying his time these days, Mr. Chair, but I know that he's very busy, and who knows, he very well may be even busier in the days to come. But I certainly will commit again to visit with my honourable colleague in his riding. I had the opportunity to travel across the province over the last 10 months, and I look forward to continuing to do so, because I think it goes to a point that my honourable colleague made. What I have learned from actually getting out into the communities and visiting with so many of the agencies, the facilities, the groups, what I have learned, not to say that what staff briefs me on and tells me about isn't extremely valuable as well, but what I learn out in the communities is really invaluable. They have some very creative ways, very creative and innovative ideas, and they think outside that box on a regular basis. And most of the groups and service providers have learned to be very creative when it comes to their funding, and they've got some very interesting ideas around how to maximize that funding. So I would like to visit those spots in my colleague's riding, and I certainly do commit to coming to his riding when it works in our schedules, and we will do our very best to get there. Mr. Chair, the entire issue around the child care plan, I know my honourable colleague has a certain amount of time here, and Mr. Chair, I'm not going to take his time by going back over all of the parts of the plan, because I don't think that would be fair. I know he's well versed on my answers in the House. I know he's well versed on the information that was provided by my deputy and my staff at Standing Committee, and I know that he's well versed in the components of the plan and the rollout that we've done so far. And so I will just add a couple of key components. Of course, the issue around portability is the one that my honourable colleague asks about. And there's no question, Mr. Chair, that when you look at the issue of the portable subsidized spaces, it's truly essential that we recognize that the subsidization and the portability of that space truly goes with the family. And so the family are able to take that space, they're able to use that subsidization, and they're able to do so at a child care centre that they have confidence in. And Mr. Chair, the 150 new spaces that we rolled out last fall, the 100 that we will bring out this spring and bring out for the next 3 consecutive after this spring, for the total of 550, I think are extremely important, because they speak to that need of those portable subsidized spaces that my colleague raised. And Mr. Chair, we are looking at the entire issue of portability. My staff are looking and will continue to review the issue of a fixed number of portable spaces, and we certainly are open to reviewing all of those components of the child care plan, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Member for Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just follow up to that. One of the issues, and going back to the $35 million which we have set aside, the question that I would ask is, why are we rolling out those 500 portability, those 500 seats slowly, as opposed to introducing them all now, because we know there's a need. The other question is around the cap and portability. You're right, the portability allows me as a family to have flexibility where I move my child to, but if that region doesn't have the ability to accept another portable seat, I can't move in there, because there's a cap, there's a limit, according to what we're hearing from the daycare facilities in regions. There's only a certain number of subsidized spaces that are allowed. So I'm wondering if we cannot, wonder why the cap is there, if it truly is about portability and flexibility for the families and that child, why we don't just remove the cap, commit to a subsidized number of spaces, and allow them to be flexible and move with the family. Because I may live in one community, work in another, and prefer to have childcare where I'm working, as opposed to where I'm living. So I'll just give you an opportunity to respond to that.
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, recognizing that my honourable colleague has a certain amount of time, I don't want to take up all of his time, but I do want to get on the record the issue of rolling out pieces and components of the plan in a thought-out process. And I think it's important to note that what we've done thus far as part of the $130 million plan is that we've laid the foundation. And my honourable colleague has heard me say this, and he knows what I mean. We've laid the foundation so that the rest of the components of the plan can now fall into place, Mr. Chair. And so as we roll out, as we rolled out 150 of those subsidized spaces, as we put those operational grants in place, Mr. Chair, that represent a $54 million commitment of that $130 million total, as we rolled out the repair and renovation loans, we did so that the sector could provide for the foundation to now receive those additional spaces. So we have the issue of the operational grants, which was for the retention and the training and the recruitment of staff, because, Mr. Chair, the expression, if you build it, they will come, isn't necessarily the case. We could build it, we could provide the spaces, but if we don't have the workers and we don't have the centres at a position where they're able to receive those spaces and those children, it would be a backward approach to it. So the approach that we've taken is laying the foundation, getting those resources in place, and now I will let my colleague know that I have expedited the process for the creation of the spaces with the additional federal dollars that will be coming our way through the additional money that was allocated through the $7 million allocation this year. Once the federal government gets their budget in place, that $7 million is meant to be on the ground this fiscal for the creation of those spaces, the grants and the dollars that need to be provided to the centres to actually create those spaces for the expansion grants. That will be done. I have asked for that to be done as soon as physically possible to allow the sector to absorb that, because of course we don't physically build the spaces, the sector does, but we provide the resources. And so it's that resource provision that I have indicated to staff I want out the door as soon as possible. But to my honourable colleague's point about the cap, we are reviewing that and we are looking at that to see if the cap on those portability need to be adjusted, Mr. Chair. And as we move forward with the long-term plan of this, long-term component and sustainability of this plan, we will certainly take that into consideration.
The honourable member for Annapolis with approximately 23 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question around you're waiting for the $7 million to come in from this federal budget, either it's misinformation that's out there, or we have $35 million still there. So why do I guess my question would be, why are we waiting for the 7? We just start moving with the 35 that we have and start flowing it out to allow families to access those daycare spaces as quickly as possible.
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And no, indeed, the monies are there simply because they weren't spent. They haven't been removed. They are still there. And excuse me if I misled my colleague. It wasn't that we're waiting for it. We're anxiously waiting for it because we know that it's an additional 7 on top of what we had already planned for. So we know it can help us expedite the process.
The Honourable Member for Annapolis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I assume a lot of the prep work has been done, that we know the areas where we're going to begin to add these spaces and as we go along. And I look forward to hearing the announcement that the additional daycare spaces will be beginning. And I really am encouraged by the fact that you're looking at the cap, because I believe in order for portability to actually work properly, we're going to have to do something about the cap, either eliminate it completely or adjust it upward quite substantially in order to allow that flexibility for the individual families. I'm going to share a little bit of time with my colleague, but I would be remiss if I sat down without asking you about the poverty reduction strategy that I know all members of this House unanimously endorsed a resolution recently, and when we can see a rollout. I think this is fundamentally one of the largest, or probably the biggest thing facing us as a province, is the issue around poverty. And it's unfair that you're the person being constantly asked about this because you are dealing with the results of our inability and our willingness not to deal with it. The Minister of Justice has a role to play. The Minister of Health has a role to play. The Minister of Education has a role to play. The Minister in the Status of Women has a role to play. Almost every minister sitting across from us has a role to play with this issue, but it lands squarely on your desk, and you're the one that has to deal with it constantly. So I first of all want to say that I was thrilled that this resolution was passed. I want to see some action, though. But I don't just want to see it land on yours. So this is also a plea to your other colleagues who are sitting across from me, not to expect it all to come out of your budget. I'm asking for the other ministers to say, this is a benefit to our departments as well. We're prepared to step up with some people resources, some financial resources to deal with this issue in the way it should be dealt with, in a very comprehensive way. It's not just a community service issue. I can tell you, as a family of law enforcement officers, it's a justice issue. As a family with some educators in it, it's an education issue. My colleague from Halifax Clayton Park will often tell you, poverty issue, the face of poverty is feminine. You know, so it's an issue for the status of women. I want to ask a little bit about, I want you to explain a little bit of how the departments have come together to form this strategy, and whether or not we are now in the process of reaching out to the communities and to the people on the street who are dealing with this issue on a day-to-day basis to really put together a comprehensive strategy on how to deal with the issue of poverty.
Thank you. The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And the issue of the poverty reduction strategy is indeed one that I too am pleased that we have unanimous consent of this chamber, and I am pleased to hear my colleague, and I know he has on the record stated this before, and I'm pleased to hear him state it today, that it is an interdepartmental, it is a combination, it is a governmental, and Mr. Chair, I would go farther to say it is a societal responsibility. And when I look at the potential that we have to truly make a difference, I don't want a report to be the outcome of this. I want a true, meaningful, measurable reduction and move forward. And I think in order for that to be realistic, it has to include business, has to include all levels of government, it has to include all departments of government, but I think too our community stakeholders have a tremendous responsibility and ownership of this as well. So I think together we absolutely do need to go at this in a collective. And I used the statement when we were talking about the Nunn Commission, and I'm going to use it again, Mr. Chair, when I used the statement about silos coming down. Because we tend to live in our silos in our departments, and we cannot when it comes to issues that are this broad. So I certainly have included all of my colleagues in any way, shape, or form that I can, and I will continue to do so. I know that we have a working committee that involves a variety of the other departments that is looking forward to getting some work done. I have met with senior officials in my own department on this matter. We are, as with every strategy, we are looking at what's the best use of our resources and our time, and which direction do we go in. We know a lot of this has already been done. I referenced earlier, a lot of reports have already been done. The phenomenal work that was done by the Standing Committee through their roundtable and their presentations, that work's done. The women's centres across this province have a wealth of knowledge and information that they can share with us, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we absolutely do need to engage the stakeholders, and we will. But it's a matter of, if it's already been investigated, reported, why would we investigate and report it again? So let's make sure that we use all that information to the best of our ability, and there's no question that it needs to be an interdepartmental and it needs to be a governmental initiative. And I look forward to working with my colleagues and all members of this House as we move forward on this issue.
Thank you. The honourable member for Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make a comment, and then I'll share the time with my colleague from Kings West. I was pleased to hear you say that we're reaching out to the business community to take part in this, because there is a real willingness, I believe, on their part to want to deal with this issue. I also want to encourage you and actually let's not rely on the work that's already been done, not because it's not valuable and not because it doesn't have true input to the issue we're dealing with, but I think the stakeholders in the community need to feel and need to be part of this process for them to have some confidence in it. Often, and it's not government, it's just in general, when we talk about the issue of government and the bureaucracy, people on the ground dealing with these issues every day have lost confidence in us. as collective, and I'm not meaning government, but I mean collectively, and I think they've lost confidence in our willingness to deal with some of these tough issues. This is a tough issue. It's an issue that's facing all of our communities, and in some ways all of our families. This is being faced by. So the reach out to the stakeholders is as much, in my view, to build that connection and confidence with them that we as collectively are really serious about this issue, and we want your input, and we're going to do with it. They have done some great work, and so has the Committee of Community Services. But it would be a way to reach out and say, we're committed to this. We want you to buy in. We're moving forward. We have the business community. We have a number of departments online. So I do want to say to you that. And if I stand up much longer and ask you many more questions, we will have solved most of the issues related not only to your department, but all the other departments. So I'm going to share the rest of my time with my colleague from Kings West. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll continue on the housing area, which is where I had left off. And I know it's a huge piece dealing with housing. And I'll start off with just a very general question at first. And there are proponents, and I can safely say inside of community services as well as outside, who feel that perhaps a split with a housing department and other community services issues, more on the direct services to clients and so forth, should be probably would perhaps make for better organization, better delivery of the meeting needs. So I'm just wondering if the minister has a thought on this or perspective. I know the two are very often linked together because we do have, housing is one of the critical needs of those who are on low incomes or fixed income or income assistance. And I'm just wondering if there are any directional pieces there in that regard.
Thank you. The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I would be remiss, Mr. Chair, if I didn't thank my honourable colleague who was prior to the current member for his discussion in the debate here today. So I certainly should get that on the record, Mr. Chair. That's an interesting question that my honourable colleague raises. And as I'm sitting here, I don't know what my gut reaction, my immediate reaction is. I know we've been there, done that before. There has been, if I understand the history correctly, there has been a separate Department of Housing in the past. Currently, it is not something that we are discussing in the department. The correlation, as my colleague mentioned, the correlation between some of the housing pressures and the ESIA programming that we provide, the senior programs that we provide, there's a natural fit there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There's a natural fit. So while it is a challenging portfolio, and I would be more than happy to share with any of my colleagues some of the more challenging parts of my department, at this time it's not something that is in discussion at the department level, and we'll continue to keep that collaboration together between the components of the department that work well.
Thank you. The Honourable, the member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And moving on to a different area, and that is persons with disabilities. And I'm wondering, have you developed the persons with disabilities allowance that has been promised and talked about?
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank my colleague for bringing this up. That's the first time it's come up in estimate debate, and it is something that I have looked at and the department has looked at and we take very seriously. There's no question, Mr. Chair, that the services for persons with disabilities and the issue of a disability allowance is something that we have looked at in the department. We've had discussions at the senior level. I also will let my colleague know that I have had discussions with our federal counterparts on this issue, because as the federal government looks at the issue of a disability allowance and the issue of a federal responsibility, we have had discussions, and we will continue to have those discussions, and I will continue to encourage my federal counterpart to recognize that there is a federal component to this, and that there is a federal responsibility to this. And so I will continue with that discussion, Mr. Chair. This is an issue that deserves a complete understanding of what's at stake here. And I don't want to make light of the issue. So I think when we discuss the allowance issue, it's something that we have to look at very seriously. It's something that the department takes very seriously. And as we move forward, government has made a commitment, this government has made a commitment to a disability allowance, and I want to make sure that all members of the House understand that that is a commitment we absolutely will commit to keep, but it's getting that commitment right that is the most important aspect of that issue today.
Thank you. The honourable member for Kings West.
I was wondering if you just could confirm the rates now payable to a single person with a disability for shelter allowance, personal allowance, and transportation allowance. I could just have those figures, please.
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And as we're getting the figures here, if I understand correctly, it's a single individual with a disability allowance, so $535, Mr. Chair, for the initial, and then the $200 basic allowance in addition to that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The Honourable the member for Kings West.
Of course, I guess perhaps nothing separate than maybe on transportation. We know that transportation is a huge piece in terms of rural Nova Scotians with disabilities. It's obviously costlier, and often private transportation or limitations with public transit are certainly issues in this area. So I'm wondering if the government has addressed any provisions or made any provisions within the budget this time, or as you look forward to addressing this issue more adequately.
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And certainly, I would again be remiss if I didn't identify that, of course, we also have the funding provided for special needs, as special needs pertain to each individual's circumstance. Mr. Chair, $20 million commitment in this year's budget to the special needs funding. And that, of course, is done in consultation with the caseworker and the individual family or client as necessary. The issue of transportation is one that I find very interesting to discuss here today. We know that there are challenges, whether it be in a rural area or an urban area, that pertain to transportation. We have rates that vary, and I bring that up because it's important to note that if there are special extenuating medical circumstances, we certainly provide transportation funding around those special instances and circumstances. We do have a funding formula that's in place for general transportation. I have asked staff to have a look at the entire issue around transportation, because there are some factors that exist in a rural component that don't exist in an urban component, and then vice versa. So I have asked them to have a look at that to see if there is a better way to deliver those transportation dollars to ensure that the clients are getting the best possible formula that works for them, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And one of the programs around support for people with disabilities is the Alternate Family Support Program, and I've had a little bit of personal contact with the Kentville office in working to get a few families engaged in this program. And so I haven't had direct contact with them now for a couple of months. I'm just wondering at what stage is this program developed? Is it across the province? And also, if it isn't, what are the plans for the Alternate Family Support Program?
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleague for the opportunity to discuss this very very important and very successful program. As my honourable colleague knows, the three programs that we put on the ground to assist persons with disabilities to be able to stay in their communities and to stay in their homes, a big success, Mr. Chair. The alternate family support, of course, is one that we do provide across the province. It is province-wide. It was one of those three that we introduced. It's been extremely successful. We continue to expand that program, Mr. Chair. The service providers, the families who assist us with the delivery of that very successful program are invaluable. The loving care and the professional care that they provide in their homes is, of course, second to none, Mr. Chair. And of course, this government recognizes the importance of those programs and the expansion of those programs, and $2.2 million was added to the budget this year to ensure that those programs continue to expand.
Thank you. The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Minister, for that update. You also talked about and made commitment to put a stop on the clawback of CPP disability benefits, and I'm just wondering how is that plan or initiative going?
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And of course, with every year, you have to prioritize certain initiatives that will move forward, other initiatives that will not move forward, that will be deferred. And so, of course, the CPP clawback that was referenced by my honourable colleague is one of those ones that we are examining. The department is looking at how best to make that work in the true nature that it was intended, and how best to make that work respecting jurisdictional and charter challenges, Mr. Chair, that we have been alerted to as a potential complication. So we're working within the department to see how we can best do that with the intention that it was first committed, and certainly it's something that we'll continue to look at, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Nova Scotia League for Equal Opportunities, Leo, wants 25% of affordable housing units to be accessible, and they've been talking about this now for a number of years. I'm wondering, is this a consideration? Is it achievable? And what percentage would currently exist?
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and that's a good topic for discussion. To be honest, the exact percentage of public housing today that is accessible is not a figure that I have right with me right now. I certainly will get that from my colleague. I have referenced earlier the project that I visited that we announced just 2 weeks ago, the successful project here in Fairview that was celebrated by Ralph Ferguson and Anne McRae, along with myself. They were very pleased with the advances that had been made. I understand from my housing staff that when our proposals go out, when we have those requests for proposals, a component of that is that the units must be accessible, of course, for mobility challenges, Mr. Chair. And that's something that becomes a societal responsibility, as well as a governmental and an authority, a housing authority responsibility. So certainly, as we move forward with the commitment of the housing dollars through the federal government, partnered with our commitment for housing dollars, we certainly will ensure that accessibility remains a priority in that funding allotment.
Thank you. The honourable member has approximately a minute and a half.
The time fly by. Thank you, Mr. Chair. One last question then. Wondering if there is currently a moratorium on small option homes, and if there is a plan to lift that. We know there's a great movement now to deinstitutionalize our society where possible, and that may be a great step towards certainly some degree of independence. If you could make a comment in that area, it'd be much appreciated.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and certainly my honourable colleague has answered a component of this question for me already with his discussion about the alternate family support program and the success of that. And what we've done, Mr. Chair, is we've taken that program along with the independent family living and the direct family support to complement what currently exists, Mr. Chair, in our continuum of services and programs that we provide across the province and to all Nova Scotians who need our assistance. So that continuum of services and programs is one that we work with. I'm awaiting any day now the review, that residential review, so we can have a look at what we have, where some of the gaps are. We recognize that there are some gaps out there now. See exactly where those gaps are. How can we best use the resources we have to fill those gaps? And what exactly is it that we need to move forward with on a priority basis? So as we move forward, things have not come to a halt. I like to make sure that I reference that every possible chance I get, that the department has continued to work with the complexities that are faced by us every day. We continue to roll out options for the individuals who find themselves at our department with needs, and we will continue to roll out those options, Mr. Chair, in a manner that best satisfy all of those complex needs, as we know that some individuals are best met, their challenges are best met with programs like the alternate family support, others with small options, others with a more individual case plan, and we do that each and every day, Mr. Chair, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you. The honourable member's time has expired. Chair will now recognize the honourable member from Pictou West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm pleased to have this second opportunity to ask a few questions to the department and to the minister. And Madam Minister, if you might recall, I'm sure you had lots of interventions between when I was last up, but I was asking partly about income assistance rates and how perhaps inadequate they are, and it's really tough for many families, many individuals out there. And secondly, I was speaking out on the, I guess, the housing income cutoff levels for individuals and for seniors. And again, with the rates being as low as they are, it's hard for some people to qualify that you know, really are in a bad position. They have a roof that's leaking, or they have a furnace that's no longer working, or an old mobile home, perhaps 30 or 40 years of age, and it's just fallen apart around them. So, and when their income is just barely over the line, it really makes it tough. And these people come to their MLA asking for help, and we guide them through the process to get their name before the department and look for help. And then after many, many months of waiting, because of the wait times, they're told, no, sorry, you don't qualify, your income's $500 over the limit. So it's certainly discouraging for those individuals that when they think there's some hope, they might get some help. But I guess I want to ask then in relation to that is, you know, what happens then? Is there some help for a family or an individual, even though they're over the limit by a few $100s, and a real crisis in their life is when their furnace breaks down and or their roof is so bad it's just causing mold problems in their mobile home or whatever. In spite of the fact they're over the limit, is there some type of an emergency help for them to be able to cope with life as it presents it to them?
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I welcome my colleague back to the discussion and appreciate the ability to chat a little bit more about these two issues that he raised that are very important. And if I can preface my statement, we were talking earlier about income assistance allowance and shelter allowance and the challenges that creates for some families and individuals. And I do want to also identify, though, that on top of the allowance, the personal allowance and the shelter allowance, of course, we also do have other series of programs and services that are available. And I just referenced, for instance, Mr. Chair, the child care subsidies that would exist, the training opportunities that we provide through ESIA, the housing component that goes along with our ESIA, and of course, situations like pharmacare, and then as well special need funding. And I want to go to special need funding because I think that's where we can also tie in the idea that, that we do have, Mr. Chair, as my colleague asked, are there other avenues available if a family, if a senior finds themselves above those hills, those household income limits. And of course, the entire issue around emergency funding and emergency health and safety repair and renovations is something that we take very seriously. I would encourage my honourable colleague, if he finds himself in the position where there are specific cases, to please don't hesitate to come to us and come to me personally or come to the department, because there are often times, Mr. Chair, extenuating circumstances that we're perhaps not aware of, that need to be made aware, that staff need to be made aware of. And sometimes it's many MLAs and members in this House who bring those issues to our attention that we're then able to fully understand and put in place the different resources that we have available to us to meet their specific needs.
Thank you. The honourable member from Pictou West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the Minister. That's good to know, I guess, that there might be some consideration for special circumstances. I can think of one particular case, not so much to do with her home, but it was a personal health need. You know, she was quite hard of hearing, and her doctor advised her that she needs a digital hearing aid. Now, perhaps that's not necessarily within your department, maybe it's more Department of Health, but you know, it was several $1,000s to pay for that. She had no way really of paying for that, yet it was what she needed in order to be able to hear what's going on. And is that something the department would consider, or is that something that you coordinate with the Department of Health, or where can this individual go for the help that she needs?
Thank you. The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to be clear, of course, if we're talking about income assistant clients, then we do have special need funding and financing that is available to those special need clients for a variety of medical reasons or dental reasons or health-related reasons. If it's outside of the income assistant clientele, then we would work, of course, as all departments and all members would work with service clubs in our areas or with our counterparts at Health and an attempt to ensure that those needs were being met. But as a direct responsibility of the Department of Community Services, not outside of our employment or our income assistant clientele, would we have available funding.
Thank you. The honourable member for Pictou West.
I guess the other issue that I want to raise, you know, every once in a while as an MLA, we all get very difficult cases. And often it's multifaceted, there's quite complications, and you know, I'm working with one right now. I guess it's precipitated by one of the partners going into a nursing home, the other one's left at home. There's a lot of bills piling up that she's not able to pay, not only household bills, but some of the responsibility of looking after his care in the nursing home. And there's other complications with children and so on in the home that with no income, and it just on it goes. It's complicated, but does the department, in cases like that or similar circumstances, is there, I guess, an interventionist system, or is there somewhere families can turn to maybe get some advice or some help? Yeah, they turn to me as their MLA, but you know, we can advise as best we can. But does the Department of Community Services have somebody on staff or within the various regions that can sit down with a family and try to sort through these multi-layered of difficulties, from financial to mental health issues to you know, other pressures on the family? Does the department offer any service like that?
Thank you. The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And there's no question that my honourable colleague brings a very important issue, and that is that all too often it is a multifaceted problem that exists. It's not a simple answer. It's not a simple issue. It's not one. And when you're dealing with the case like my honourable colleague has mentioned here today, the varying components and the complexity of that can be overwhelming for us as MLAs when individuals come to us, let alone those families who find themselves in those situations. And I want to take this opportunity to say that anytime MLAs or individuals find themselves in cases where they have that multifaceted component, please do come to the department. Come directly to our department here in Halifax. For sure, go to the regional department. There are individuals, there's no one single individual who would take on the responsibility of the circumstance that my honourable colleague prefaced, but there are a multitude of individuals within the department who take issues like that, who work with families to ensure that any programs, any resources that we have, that folks are able to access them. And again, to my honourable colleague, the introduction of this new program for seniors, it may not fit this particular case, I'm not suggesting that it does, but the introduction of this new program for seniors, where seniors are able to access funding and resources to stay longer in their homes, that may be something that as we bring this pilot program forward, many of our seniors in our communities will be able to access and benefit from, and it will provide some assistance and reassurance for those families who are faced with some of those challenging questions and situations like my colleague brought forward.
Thank you. The honourable member from Pictou West.
Well, that's all the questions, Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask. I want to thank the Minister for those comments. There's some institutional challenges we have in Pictou County, and I know my colleague from Pictou East is going to bring those forward. So, again, thank you, Madam Minister.
Thank you. The chair will now recognize the honourable member from Pictou East.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure for me to stand here and have an opportunity to raise some concerns with the Minister at this level during the estimates. I'm going to refrain from individual situations and also from policy perspectives as well, because I think they have been well aired, and we do get a good response from staff in the local area. What I want to address first and foremost is the Riverview Home, the adult residential center in Riverton, which is in my constituency, but it is a concern to all three members in Pictou County. Now, the situation involving the Riverview Home, this is a facility that has existed since 1920. It is 87 years old. And the member for Pictou West and I have raised this in the House in relationship to some remarks regarding my constituency, but I didn't have the opportunity to raise it to the Minister in the estimates. But this structure is in desperate need of renewal, of being totally revamped. And in the tour of that facility that we had a number of months ago, we went from the basement to the attic, and there are so many things that have to be looked after. The wiring, the kitchen, the number of toilets that there are, the number of baths, there's just not enough there. And worst of all is the accommodation area of those residents. We have, in many rooms, 100 square feet of space being shared by two individuals. And it's my understanding that the department has been looking at that facility, and some staff have indicated that there will be action in relationship to the Riverview Home, and even the idea of it being carried out over 3 years has been advanced. So, Mr. Chair, I ask the Minister, when will an official announcement be made in relationship to that facility and the badly needed overhaul of it.
The Honourable, the Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank my colleague for the opportunity to discuss the issue that he brings to the floor here today. Again, I will preface any statements about finances or renovations or repairs with the fact that the work that goes on at Riverview, the work that goes on across the province on behalf of those who need us most, those who find themselves in a vulnerable situation, is invaluable. And any statements made after that fact, Mr. Chair, I think always require that commitment. And I know my honourable colleague understands that. I know my colleague my colleagues from all of the PICTOs met with the board, had an opportunity to visit Riverview. My colleague from PICTO Centre met with me in my department and brought the issues that the board had brought to him and to the other members directly to my desk, and it's not something that has fallen on deaf ears. Certainly the pressures, we know that the building has its challenges. We know that the health and safety concerns of the staff and the clientele are the utmost importance to the board, and so certainly we were, when we worked through our budgetary process, we were able, Mr. Chair, to provide the board with some dollars this year to address some of those concerns. One of the biggest concerns that exists for some of our adult residential centres, of course, are the deficits that they carry. And I know that the deficit sits heavy on their shoulders because, as we all know, fiscal responsibility and fiscal accountability is extremely important. And to offset those deficit pressures allows the boards and the centres to then be able to move forward with their projects. So, Mr. Chair, I'm pleased to inform my colleague that we were able to provide funding of $375,000 to Riverview to offset that deficit pressure, Mr. Chair, and that's something that we were very pleased to do. As well, Mr. Chair, I want to make my honourable colleague aware of the fact that for health and safety reasons, for immediate repair and renovation challenges, we also were able to provide Riverview with $80,000 to put some of those dollars immediately into place for immediate repair and renovation that were causing some health and safety concerns. Now, Mr. Chair, on top of that, of course, that won't solve the issue of the long term. And I know my colleague mentioned a three-year plan. I think it's important to note that the department is extremely aware of the challenges that are faced by Riverview, and we want to ensure that the best possible fit is what works. And so we will be doing a major, going forward with a major undertaking. We'll be meeting with the board very soon to discuss the specifics of that, to ensure that it's done in the best possible manner. And we're anticipating that will take place through our housing authorities, because we can do better with mortgages through the housing authorities, Mr. Chair. And so we look forward to the meetings with that board in the very near future to address those very serious pressures.
The Honourable Member for Pictou East.
Mr. Chair, I'm very delighted with the response of the Minister in relationship to the $375,000 and the $80,000. However, that having been said, certainly the board itself has been looking at either replacement, or as it's being referred to now as a total renewal. The word renewal, I guess the concept of replacement, you're talking multi-million dollars. And I just want to bring home the situation. I know other members are concerned about this, but it is in my riding, and my personal history with that facility goes back many years. My first tour of that facility was in 1970 as a 24-year-old municipal councillor in Pictou County. And I used to go there with the Lions Club at least once a month and be involved with dances involving the residents there and so on. And certainly George Durling, a native of Pictou County for decades, has been involved in going there on a monthly basis to provide entertainment at a very high level for decades. And what I am most excited about in that facility is the staff, despite the situation that the kitchen is so depressing, that the rooms are in such horrible shape, that the lifts that are there to put people into the tubs out of wheelchairs actually came out of Cole Harbour. The Cole Harbour facility, the scuffs and scrapes and in the walls there and so on. The maintenance staff, the people that are working there are doing a phenomenal job, and they keep referring to having that facility recognized as a facility of excellence. And when I would ask if the minister would consider coming to that facility and touring it with all 3 MLAs from Pictou County. I think you would be inspired by the staff, you would be inspired by the residents, and you would be appalled at the situation that does exist there. One of the things that was most discouraging when I was going through that facility was to see rooms that were in fact 100 square feet and drawers that wouldn't even open in a bureau, that the bureaus had to be rolled out into the walk space for the bottom 2 drawers to be open. Now, 100 square feet for 2 people is contrasted to, I think, the new nursing home standard, which is something in the order of 190 or 197 square feet. I'm just trying to go by memory here. But we have 2 people in almost half the area of 1 person. And that is the appalling situation that does exist in that facility. So having said that, I hope that the renewal will begin very soon, that the allocation of major funding will be forthcoming, and the board is a good one, I believe, and as I said earlier, the management and staff there would be second to none. So anything that can be done to make this the facility of excellence that the folks there are trying to achieve would be appreciated. So having said that, would the minister be prepared to come and tour that facility with the 3 MLAs?
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And it's indeed my pleasure to make a few comments surrounding my honourable colleague's request. And first and foremost, Mr. Chair, let me state that the department's commitment and concern is one that I know my honourable colleague shares. We're not looking for a band-aid approach here, Mr. Chair, and I know that my colleague nor the other members for the area are not looking for that either. Therefore, Mr. Chair, it's important that we do it right, and it's important that we respect and celebrate the integrity of the clients, and obviously, Mr. Chair, the integrity and the commitment of the staff. For it is indeed a credit to the staff, to the board, and to the community at large, the tremendous work that goes on there given some of the challenging circumstances that my honourable colleague brings to the floor here today. So certainly we will ensure that the project, as we move forward, in whatever capacity the project may be, is done so in a manner that reflects that respect. And Mr. Chair, it's been a pleasure for me to travel across the province as I've been able to do within my schedule. And Mr. Chair, I would look forward to continuing to travel across the province. I would be delighted to come to Pictou County. I would be delighted to meet with the members for that area and the board, and meet some of the tremendous staff and the residents of Riverview. And Mr. Chair, who knows? Perhaps when we visit, we can bring good news with us.
The honourable member for Pictou East.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the minister's response and willingness to tour the facility. I would like to move from a facility that is looking after over 100 residents to one that is dealing with only 6. And I had the pleasure yesterday of meeting with some of the residents who are in the Next Step Recovery House. And the Next Step Recovery House has, it's a private support facility which is helping residents with addiction problems to remain alcohol and drug-free. And they are working in conjunction with the addiction services and so on. But it's a real concern, and I think it's a concern to people within your department, Minister, in relationship to some recent changes that have, in fact, apparently just taken place on Friday, March the 16th. And the way things were working in this facility prior to that date was that a person who was on assistance actually would receive $535 a month for the apartment and $200 for personal expenses. So it was the same amount that these folks qualified for in the recovery